Well, I'm a phlebotomist, so. Never had anyone who ended up not being able to stand the sight of blood, but have had several people who couldn't do other specimens collected or received in a lab, urine, stool, sputum, etc. Also people who were surprised that most of our draws would be kids, the elderly, chemo and dialysis patients, all notoriously difficult draws, and thought everything would be exactly like it was in school. I've had new people in the hospital when I was there tell me they won't attend the code blues because they can't see anyone die. Like, it's a hospital. People are in bad shape and die in it. Went through nursing school, only to figure out I can't stand vomit. Just vomit though. I can stand blood, feces, urine, biliary drainage, pulmonary secretions, etc. There's just something about vomit. Got a prestigious degree in finance and economics, realized I sincerely hate the type of people who work in IB/finance. Edit, not all of them of course, but you all know that guy who thinks Wolf of Wall Street is a documentary about him. I teach English to kids aged 3 to 9 in China. I can't tell you how many people I've met while teaching abroad that either can't stand kids or constantly complain about how the country is so different from their own, considering being able to handle children and adapt to new surroundings are two of the biggest requirements to do the job. I work in a pathology/bacteriology lab, so basically if you're at all squeamish, you've got no chance. I took swabs from a chunk of necrotic tissue on my second day, and I'll never look at fried mushrooms the same way again. Many people become a lawyer only to discover they hate practicing law, because they didn't really understand what that meant when they went to law school. Law is very boring, involves a lot of minute, rote work which has little practical effect on a case, and is ultimately soul-sucking. Being a lawyer involves very little grandstanding in courtroom. Many lawyers never do that. Even trial lawyers, like you see on TV, only get a couple trials a year at best, and some go years between trials. The only kinds of lawyers in court every day are criminal attorneys. Bartending. Going through years and years of being hazed by co-workers and regulars, constantly being given the shittiest jobs, sometimes literally in the entire bar, all the back pain from stocking heavy ass shit, being the last one to leave almost every night. All that just to find out you don't like dealing with people at all, especially when they're drunk, that or you're sober, which I've seen a couple times and just seems awful. I was dead set on being a video game developer. Started in QA, saw the endless hours of crunch, the devs working 80+ hour weeks without showers or shaving, smelled the funk of hundreds of unwashed bodies, the crossed fingers at reaching publisher milestones for bonuses that would hopefully make it all worthwhile, and the constant fear that they wouldn't get picked up for the next project so they could keep getting paid and keep making mortgage payments. Decided that I'd rather be in systems in lieu of development and never looked back. Going to film school, then working on a real set. Learning the hierarchy and the unions, many moving pieces, and politics really makes you start to hate the industry and really turns you off. Ask a person in film and TV production, how long have you been working in the industry? Most people's response? Too long. Went through a rather longer apprenticeship learning how to cut meat just to figure out I couldn't stand the cold of the cutting room. Toughed it out long enough to get promoted to manager so I didn't have to be in it if I didn't want to be. I work in an art museum. I love art, love all of the community outreach the museum does, all the programs for kids/veterans/cancer patients to have a creative outlet. But I hate talking art. It's so bullshitty. Not every person that has an exhibit is going to be a genius, sometimes, rarely, but it does happen. The artist is a true hack, whose work required little to no creative thought, dedication of time, or new ideas. And you look like an asshole if a patron asks what you think of the art and you don't shit your pants over it. You're expected to go to every gallery opening, which is basically every night, even though everyone forgets what was even on display 2 weeks later. But the amount of times I've heard, you haven't gone to the Bone Farm. You haven't seen JoJo's installation of cut-up pants. How many hipster galleries do I have to pretend to give a fuck about? Going through rigor school to safely secure loads to a crane only to refuse to work at heights. Before that, going all the way through basic and tech training, and the first year on your first duty station, just to break down into a sobbing wreck at the prospect of your first deployment ever, to the safest base in the region. Became an airline pilot. Met my, now, wife. Realized being away from home 25+ days a month isn't the life for me. Have kids now and couldn't imagine being gone so much. Edit, I left the industry. It's a great job with experiences you simply won't have anywhere else. It doesn't even feel like a job, You never see your boss. I wouldn't even have recognized him. You just drive to the airport and jump into a jet and fly it around in all sorts of weather and airports. How fucking cool is that? If I could do it 9 to 5 I would go back instantly. The travel didn't bother me even though I'm not much of a tourist. But when you do have a life at home, like a wife or a close group of friends, it feels like your life is on pause 3 to 5 days a week while everything at home is still going on. Worked at a company that did residential new construction HVAC install. One of our jobs is we would send a team in when the house was still in sticks and install the furnace and duct work. Most people that got hired by this company went through a program one way or another. For example, mine was a 9-month program and 10K tuition. Anyways, the point is no one in here would be here without some sort of schooling. This new guy wouldn't do anything. We told him to climb into the attic and help another guy run some 16 flex duct. He said he couldn't climb the ladder. We assured him he'll be fine, and even got him an 8 ladder so he could literally step right off the top rung onto the trusses. Wouldn't go up it. Finally, we managed to coax him up the ladder after a good 10 minutes, and he spends the entire time wrapped around a truss upright like a cat stuck up a tree. We give up on him, the guy manages to run the duct himself, then we have to take 5 minutes to coax the guy back down the ladder. Now, we regularly have to place 20x20x36 sheet metal collection boxes, that weigh a reasonable amount, above 15 staircases, and this guy couldn't climb 8 into the air above a pliboard floor. Needless to say the guy didn't last long in that trade. Accounting starts off as mostly just remembering a bunch of dry rules about how to treat numbers, figuring out how much of them to put where, diligently keeping track of them. But after just a few years, numbers is a relatively small part of the work. It's all about people skills, communication, presentation, project management, sales, etc. Soft skills is the majority of the work. There's a lot of different kinds of work within the scope of accounting, but relatively few of them have room for introverts. Teaching as a whole. The burnout is real, especially for high school/middle school. 150+ students a day, lesson planning, 9+ hour days, work at home, etc. A lot of people just stick with it 4 years due to teach grants or if they can make it to 10 years so that their loans are forgiven. The empathy fatigue and burnout is real. First year teacher, but I love it. I just see it everywhere. Edit. The oversight as implied by the initial post include, not liking children, not realizing the amount of time and effort needed to be a teacher, realizing oh, I actually want weekends off and my nights, realizing you don't actually get breaks as the stigma states and you have to prep, grade, and create lessons on your time off, realizing you care too much which breaks your heart when you find out one of your children are abused, physically or sexually, realizing you actually can't survive on the income by yourself. It goes on and on. As everyone has commented on the thread. Just wanted to add that in since there's some negative Nancys out there. When I get really angry enough to feel an adrenaline spike I have trouble speaking. Every word is a legit physical and emotional struggle to produce, and it all comes out in a low, growly voice. I am a lawyer. Graphic design. You design for clients, not yourself. You don't get to have a bunch of fun making goofy shit you like. Edit. Some of y'all are lecturing me about the nature of graphic design lol. I know. I'm a designer. I love my job and my colleagues, even Sharon in accounting that has no taste. I have good days and bad days at work, just like everyone else. My comment is about those bright-eyed college kids who can't find work or lose interest because they realize that being a designer is a job. You're often at the will of your employer or client, and you can't just make cool things anymore. Your job is to solve a problem and make sure it's on brand with whatever your client wants. It can be a hard pill to swallow for people that think graphic design is all fun and games. It can be. But in a professional setting, it's most likely not. I love the idea of being a 50s housewife. Staying at home, cooking, cleaning, taking care of the kids, having a husband who worked till 5 and came home. Now the house is always spotless, making meals is down to a science because of meticulous planning, so I have nothing to do. And my husband comes home and goes straight to his computer as soon as he's home and anything I try to say to him is met with a "I can't hear you" because of his headphones. I'm not sure I can do this for much longer and I'm afraid of what's going to happen when I snap from being unable to talk to anyone over the age of 6 about what I'm feeling. Did a degree in computer science. Worked out coding bores the shit out of me. I tooled around with coding pre-degree, I knew how to do it at a small scale, and being good with computers in the mid-90s was enough to get me into it. I did learn loads about SE techniques and algorithmic approaches as part of my degree, but I don't enjoy the minutiae of trying to get a small segment of code working properly, which is pretty much all I did for the first 6 months of my graduate job. It was frustrating not knowing what my little bit of a program did in the wider scheme of things. I'm now a system design engineer, roughing out the big approaches to an architecture, working out who is responsible for what, how we show we've made what the customer asked for, and I can still read code over the dev's shoulders, which helps, smiley face.